Hi everyone, welcome back to this particular video training session on AWS Cloud. Today I am going to speak in a bit of depth of operational excellence, which is one of the pillars of AWS well-architected framework. I am going to share my experience based in multinational companies or multinational banks where each message, each resource, and each setup is mission critical. Like if let's say there is a delay in your message payments or there is latency issues and other things, excellence pillar, which is one of the 6 pillars of AWS well-architected framework. So this particular video lesson will take you in a bit of depth into architecture. And suppose you are a solution architect or an infra architect, or you are a transformation architect. Maybe you are doing some work in terms of architecting a solution for a get this operational excellence into practice. Let's deep dive a bit of it today. Okay, let's start. So I am in the AWS well architected uh, framework page of you and created a video lesson for you to make you understand these pillars. But this one is more in depth of operational excellence. Okay, then let's go inside here. First of all, what is an operation? Operation is like, let's say, for example, right? There are many, teams. So one is your change management, one is your run the bank team, one is your project management, and so on and so forth. So for operational excellence, the main thing or the main team which is responsible is the run the bank team. Any issues which comes to run the bank means which hampers to run the bank. So what can be this issue? For example, in a multinational bank, what can be an operational issue? For example, one of the operational issue could be, I submitted a payment, it didn't go through, or the page which, for example, your card, it didn't go through. So what will be the first step here? In operational excellence thing or the run the bank team, what they will do is there will be a incident call raised because it is a production issue and we have our own SLAs. SLAs means service level agreements to solve the issue in the stipulated time. Right? Customer will complain through, let's say, phone call or let's say email or let's say chatbot or any other means, and incident management call will be opened and all the run the bank teams will be all there on the bridge or the war room, right? And they will try to fix the issue. So what are the design principles to like put it into architecture or in our documentation or in our running the bank? These are the things we are going to discuss. So number one is, which is a very important principle is operations as a cloud, as a code. So I'll give you an example here. For example, many of the banks are using, OpenShift containers, or maybe they are using your cloud based things and other setups. So these things, it cannot be the deployment of, let's say, a virtual machine container. It cannot be manual anymore. It has to be in an automated fashion, right? So, for example, like if somebody wants to, provision a new VMware or virtual machine, it cannot be like I am calling a support guy and telling him, please, can you create or provision a VMware? Give me two virtual CPUs, 16 GB of RAM, this much disk space. Like you have a web page and you have all these setups where you click your own things. Like I want a VMware, I want these many virtual CPUs, I want this many RAM for this, and I want this many space, right? And I want this virtual machine to be up and running for 3 days. And all this, when you tick, you submit, it has to go through some workflow, which is, for example, like it can be through Jira to your CI/CD pipeline with all the gated approvals, right? It cannot be like there is no checks, like I'm putting 16 GB, then this particular thing gets provisioned for you, right? So this is one perform operation as a code. Second point I want to come reiterate here is like if there is some issue in the UAT, then the fix of that particular thing has to be also not manual. It has to be automated. For example, there is a patch missing in the VMware. What we will do? You cannot ask the system admin to go log into that system, then open a break glass ticket and be in automated fashion. Again, raise a ticket, the system admin will raise a ticket, get the approvals. The patch will be always pulled through your, any registry or any centrally managed storage, and it will flow through the pipeline and get to verify whether patch is there, and then go to the next steps and say like patch completion successful, patch installation successful, right? This is what is infrastructure as a code. Then we have to make sure that the it has to be not in a like big bang fashion for the changes. It that particular change impacts other changes or other servers or other applications. The blast radius is low, right? So that we understand, if let's say we are fixing some latency issues and other things, we understand that, oh yes, we just changed this particular service which was, and this has fixed the issue, and that's why this particular thing was the culprit. So this is what is uh, one of the other design principles. Okay, then these are all the ones which is being given by you know uh, AWS, but being in an experienced person from different walks of multinational companies, one of the you and your team should always be taking note of. In fact, the documentation should also be documentation as a code, like whatever the VMs we are provisioning, whatever the things we are provisioning, it should be in a document, and all the steps followed for operational code for any deployments, rollback, production issue calls, and all these things. So documentation is another thing, that is your refined operation procedures. So it has to be changed and audited time to time, so that it is not a new production system. This has happened many times in my work experience, where you are referring to a document which is not valid anymore, but you are uh, working on a new production system whose version is different, whose patch level is different, whose setup is different, right? Another is anticipate failure. So in my other tell you some scenarios without naming the companies and other things, because it's NDA which we have signed. So what happens during a DR, what happens during a business continuity planning and all these things. These are mission critical systems. Whole payment cycle is hosted on these systems. So how it is going to impact if the payment system module is down, or let's say if it is not working in absolute capacity because of some fault, and fault tolerance module being kicked in, right? So these all the things are like, how do we prepare for a disaster recovery? How do we prepare for a business continuity, a part of operational excellence? Of course, they are also part of reliability, but like preparation of run the book and all these things comes under operational things. Then learn lesson learned things. Yes, in production issues we see submission, or let's say non-patched system or infrastructure, there are outages. So how do we actually make sure that this doesn't happen again, and where do we document all this? This is where this particular Jira, Confluence page and other things comes into picture. But how do we ensure that it one? So there should be an automated setup where when we are writing the minutes of that particular incident, it should automatically get populated on the Confluence. So automation is the key in operational excellence. That's what I want to like how the workload is behaving. Performance test are you doing before any major change? If you are upgrading a system, how do you make sure that the performance is up to the mark? What is the breaking point of your cluster? Like for example, like if you have or decide what is the breaking point of your cluster. Like you have to base some, messages. You have to some base some number of messages, message size, and many other factors you have to take into picture. So yes, which I will share from time to time, but this is what is the operational excellence pillar is all about. So when you are doing a architect job, you have to make sure these all principles are being followed, and you will design the things making sure that these all points are being taken care of. So I hope this particular wishing you all the best in your next career move and next certifications. Thanks.